might work for you as well.
Oh,
okay.
Okay.
So, there we go. So tourism is, by different definitions, one of the largest industries in the world. So it's usually in the top 3 industries. It's the largest employer in the city of Vancouver, and it's the second largest export industry in the province of British Columbia. So hugely important industry to the province in terms of the economic growth. The other thing too about tourism is it's a worldwide industry, so it's not just based locally in Vancouver or across Canada. It is a career where you can live around the world. And so frequently people who are in tourism won't stay just in Vancouver, but you have the ability to work in almost any country in the world. Most of the companies that operate in tourism are all global companies, so that they have operations in Canada, the United States, Europe, Asia, everywhere. So you might not realize it when you first start out that you might be living overseas, but very quickly in your career you can be, living in Budapest or living in London or Paris or Moscow, so which is quite interesting. The other thing that's kind of neat about tourism is it's a very clean industry, so it has a very low carbon footprint. It's very sustainable. And when the United Nations is going into developing countries, the first thing that they'll probably try and do is establish a tourism industry, because it's one of the fastest ways for a country to grow their economic GDP output is through tourism. It's a very peaceful industry that way. It's hard to kill somebody once you've met them and you've traveled to their country. So it's one of the ways to foster peace in the world as well, is to increase tourism. So once you have countries and travelers starting to travel back and forth, very rarely do they actually engage in conflict. So it's one of the key development strategies of the United Nations is to foster tourism, because as soon as people start to travel, then they realize we're all kind of the same and we're not different. So it plays a really important role in the long-term stability of the planet, really. And the industry is broken into key sectors, and so our program at BCIT really trains people to go into any one of the sectors depending on what they're interested in. And it's really a wide range. Our specialty at BCIT is tourism marketing, so we're the only tourism marketing program in Canada. So there's quite a few tourism programs in Canada, but only one tourism marketing program. So it allows people to be in the marketing area of tourism, which also tends to be the best paid and the most fun. So one of the largest sectors is hotels, or the accommodation sector. So that employs more people in tourism than any other area. In my background, for 15 years I worked in hotels and loved it. Really, really fun to work in the hotel industry. Fast-paced, lots of young people working in the industry, and great benefits. The neat thing about working in a hotel is the travel benefits, so you can stay in the sister properties around the world at discounted rates, so at little or no cost. We always used to joke that the perfect relationship in tourism is someone who works for a hotel and somebody who works for an airline, so you can fly someplace and then stay there. So that's really what you want to hook up with, is one person in hotels, one person who wants to work in airlines. The other sector, which can be quite large, is transportation, and transportation includes airlines, which traditionally has been a pretty tough environment in terms of employment because it's quite cyclical. Cruise ships, which is a big one for transportation, and of course Vancouver being the home port of a whole bunch of Alaskan cruise ships, that they actually hire quite a few people every year. And then also products like the Rocky Mountaineer, which is train travel through the Rocky Mountains, really popular with older demographics. So those are some of the key areas in the transportation sector. And then you've also got food and beverage. So food and beverage is really all-encompassing. So it includes restaurants, but it also includes large-scale food and beverage providers like the Vancouver Trade and Convention Center, or Whistler Blackcomb. When you think of, they might feed 50,000 skiers a day. And there's some really interesting trends that marketers are interested in with food and beverage. So the rise of the 100-mile diet and organic food, and people eating closer to home. So restaurants are really trying to develop menus and programs to highlight that all the food is locally sourced, so organic and within a short distance of the restaurant, which is quite interesting. And also, as a tourism product, is much better, because then it truly is different from home. Because it's Salt Spring Island lamb, or it's potatoes that are grown in Pemberton, or it's fresh Fraser Valley corn, where you can't get that in New York City. And then from a marketing perspective as well, you have the rise of celebrity chefs like Gordon Ramsay, who are really sort of raising the game in terms of marketing food and beverage. It's really becoming a lot more sophisticated than it has been in the past. And also in BC with the whole wine tourism, really we have the potential to create another destination the size of Napa Valley in British Columbia as our wineries get more established. So that's going to be a huge potential growth area. And one of the other sectors of tourism is attractions, and attractions are basically broken into two big kinds. There's man-made attractions and natural attractions. So Banff National Park was our first tourist site, which is natural. The first tourist attraction in the world that has sort of been labeled that is the Eiffel Tower, which is open for the World's Fair. And then so you have Caplan Suspension Bridge, or the Aquarium, Disneyland, Niagara Falls, even Whistler Blackcomb to a certain extent. So a lot of people involved in the marketing of attractions, which can be quite interesting as well. So if you like the outdoors, that can be kind of a cool career path. Meetings and events, and that's really sort of one of my areas of specialty. So when I worked in the hotel business, I was really quite specialized where I focused on meetings and conventions. So I would work with clients from around the world who wanted to come to Vancouver to launch new car products, for instance. So we did a big launch for Jaguar for their new sports car. Or we would work with a computer company or a pharmaceutical company, and they were coming to Vancouver for a meeting or launching new products. And it could range from a small product launch to the Olympics, are all examples of meetings and events industry. Also, a lot of people are interested in event management, so getting in behind and planning special events. One of the things that this recession has kind of shaken out, what we're seeing is a lot more companies now are investing in event production. So it used to be called event management or event marketing, and now some of the names are kind of changing, and some people are calling it experiential marketing. So it's basically, I get to experience your product through an event. So maybe if I'm skiing up at Whistler, I come down the hill at the end of the day, and there's a huge tent set up with Land Rovers, and I could go in and see the new Land Rover product and touch it, and maybe drive it around a small course so I can experience your product. So marketers are using events a lot more now to sort of get the right customers in front of their product. So we do a lot of event production stuff in tourism, so that's part of tourism. Adventure tourism. Adventure tourism is if you like the outdoors, it's very exciting. The other thing that's kind of cool about adventure tourism, it's one of the most recession-resistant segments of any business known to man. So people who are passionate about their adventure activities, it could be rock climbing or scuba diving or motorcycle touring, whatever it is, when the economy slows down, because they're so passionate about that, they don't cut back on that. They're still going to do it. So they might sell their car, or they might take the bus for a year, but they're still going to take their holiday and they're going to go on a safari in Africa or whatever it is. So the adventure tourism market is one of the fastest growing, actually, of all the different tourism segments. So it's a very interesting area, and definitely in British Columbia we are adventure tourism. So there's huge potential for adventure tourism in the province, still just kind of being tapped. And then travel services. So travel services is kind of this amorphous middle of consultants who work in the industry. So say, for instance, you want to build a website and you're a travel company. Well, because the tourism industry is so large in Vancouver, we have web design companies who only work on tourism products. There's accountants and lawyers in Vancouver who only work for tourism services, so they're used to the kind of lawsuits that hotels get into, for instance, or accountants who specialize in doing accounting for tourism organizations. And there's marketing consultants who work just for tourism specific companies. And then the other one is tourism services, and this is quite interesting because this is a little bit bigger and it's more pure marketing. So in this area you've got companies that we call DMOs, Destination Marketing Organizations. So sitting down the waterfront in Vancouver, there's a company of 60 people, and all they do is market Vancouver to the world. So they're always trying to think of strategies and how can we better present Vancouver to people around the world so they want to spend their vacation dollars here. Then you also have companies like Smith Travel Research, which is a global marketing research company that only researches travel. So they want to know how people buy travel and get inside consumers' mind, and if this particular offering was offered, would that be of interest to you? And then also they do a lot of sensitivity studies. So if you're interested in going skiing this winter on holiday, how much are you willing to pay? You know, are you willing to pay this much or that much? So they do a lot of really interesting information for us, and there's a lot of public relations involved in tourism products because we're selling